Hey, I hope you're having a great evening. I'm about to go and do some Pilates after I film this, hence the workout clothes. But today, I wanted to talk to you about the good enough paradox. Essentially, the science behind why we tolerate mediocrity. Now, this thought came to me because I just graduated college a couple weeks ago from USC, and as a senior who's friends with a lot of other seniors from my own university, now we've been kind of seeing where everyone has been distributed. And I came across this article that was talking about why all of the people that come into college with the idea of creating global change or doing something entrepreneurial and impactful, how so many of them get siphoned away and take on traditional corporate career structures when they otherwise wouldn't have. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. So the region beta paradox is the scientific phenomenon behind why people tolerate mediocrity. So Harvard and UCLA researchers documented this phenomenon, and what the beta region paradox is that we're essentially worse at escaping mild pain than deep pain. And this kind of makes sense if you think about it. When you scrape your knee, for example, you're in a lot of pain, you're bleeding, you can't just decide to ignore it. You don't want a bacterial infection, so you act on it immediately. You get the rubbing alcohol, you sit down, you tolerate the burn, you put on the bandage, and then you move about your day. But when you get a paper cut, you don't really act on it, because it's uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to where you actually go and do something about it. But the interesting aspect of that is then you deal with the paper cut pain for longer because you're not treating it. Whereas the pain that was actually more intense, scraping your knee, lasts for a shorter period of time because you actually took immediate action. And the Harvard and UCLA researchers found the same outcome when they conducted the study. People imagined painful life events in the study and predicted how long they'd last. And everyone assumed that intense pain would last longer. And the study results showed that milder pain persisted longer for these participants because you tolerate it. It becomes background noise, you try to adapt around it and inadvertently make it last longer. And this is basically why good enough is deadly. And this neuroscience kind of also explains in part why people get stuck in their cushy jobs and end up in consulting when they wanted to go and pursue global environmental change or another initiative that they were initially interested in. And it's because our brains are unable to discern how much pain we tolerate in the long run and in totality when it's spread out. Whereas when the issue that we're going through is intense, specific, and localized, our brain gets a powerful signal to act up on it. So how do we kind of deal with this? How do we make sure that we don't end up being mediocre? The answer is the AMCC. Let me explain the acronym. The AMCC is the anterior mid-cingulate cortex in your brain. And the AMCC in your brain essentially grows when you do hard things. When you do hard things is the only time this region of the brain grows. And before you think about it, there's no loopholes. Because if you do an activity that you hated, like cold showers, and then you start enjoying the cold showers, you no longer grow the AMCC region of your brain. So essentially, you have to seek discomfort. And that's the only way we grow that part of the brain. But why is this important? Well, neuroscientist Andrew Huberman refers to the AMCC as the willpower muscle. So before we had more and longitudinal studies on the neuroscience behind willpower, there were many people that thought willpower was a static feature, that we were all born with a limited capacity to tolerate discomfort and pursue what we need to do, when in reality, willpower is a muscle that we can train. And there are a lot of notable examples of people who've been able to master the science of the AMCC and use it to their advantage, intuitively or purposefully so. A great example would be David Goggins, and his life story is amazing. Please look into it if you haven't already. That being said, in order to build the AMCC, we need to make inaction more expensive than action. And so when it comes to seeking discomfort in order to pursue the things that we know we need to pursue, make sure that you add an element of discomfort and pain that would motivate you enough to consistently execute on the actions you want to. For example, people recommend putting a monetary consequence when you don't follow a habit, like if you snooze your alarm in the morning when you know you're not supposed to. That's a great opportunity to add friction so the current habit that you're engaging in is less desirable. What I did is I got an accountability partner, which is another method I really recommend. And having an accountability partner really allowed me to show up more consistently and stay stuck to my goals for a longer period of time, because I was no longer just letting myself down, I was letting down another person if I didn't show up. And so those are just some examples of how you can add friction to make the behaviors you are not supportive of less desirable. And after talking about this science, I realized that there is actually a catch to this as well. So we do need to seek discomfort. We do need to push ourselves in order to do the hard things so that we escape mediocrity. And that's one problem. That being said, unchecked ambition that is not channeled in the right way can lead us to the other extreme where we collapse everything that we build through reckless behavior. Morgan Housel nails this really well in The Psychology of Money, and I've annotated the crap out of this book. It's amazing. But essentially, he talks about how the hardest skill is getting the goalpost to stop moving. Because when you don't have a concrete idea of what enough is for you, every step you take forward just shifts the goalpost ahead of you by 2 steps. And so you will consistently feel empty, and the effort that you put in will not actually emotionally translate the way that you want it to. He cites social comparison as the reason for this, and he gave an example talking about MLB players. And the poorest player in the MLB makes $500,000 a year, but because he's comparing himself against his other teammates, he feels like he is objectively disadvantaged financially because his peers are making more amount of money. And this brings us to the solutions that Housel recommends in order to deal with the scenario. And the first solution he gives us is 1, enough is not too little, meaning define what enough is for you and what happiness is for you. Because whatever the case, if you are unable to deny a potential dollar, it will eventually catch up to you. The second solution is to take on this mindset of there are many things never worth risking, no matter the potential gain. Rajat Gupta, who was objectively financially wealthy, still decided to insider trade in order to get a marginal amount of additional money when he had so much money already that each additional dollar had diminishing returns, and there was no point for him to. Bernie Madoff did the same thing, and he didn't have to create a Ponzi scheme because he already had a very successful business, and he still decided to. Therefore, in order to actually grow and break out of mediocrity, we need to chase discomfort. But in the pursuit of chasing discomfort in order to better ourselves, we also need to create guardrails so that our ambition doesn't become unchecked and take us to the other extreme of the situation where we engage with reckless risk and destroy what we have actually managed to build.